Hello students. Today we're going to look at solving systems of inequalities. Now we graphed linear inequalities in the last video and we figured out if it was a dashed line or a solid line, and we also figured out which area was going to be shaded. And then we have been graphing systems of equations, and remember the solution to a system of equations was one point that satisfied all the systems in the equations. Well, when we solve systems of inequalities, we're not looking for one point, but we're looking for all the points that satisfy both inequalities in the system. And we're going to be able to do that by figuring out which parts of the shading for the two lines overlap. And you can see a couple of examples here, sample 1 and sample 2. In sample 1, you can see here where the line y equals x plus 2 is graphed and everything above it was shaded, and then the line y equals negative 2x minus 1 was graphed and everything below it, and you can see this area right here is the area where the shading overlaps, so those are where all the solutions are. And you can see the same thing here. We've got two lines, x plus y equals 4, and then everything above that is graphed, and then down here x plus y equals 1 and everything below that. So there's no solution to this system of inequalities because there's no place that those shades overlap with those two parallel lines. So now let's look at a couple of examples. We're not going to do all 6 of them right now. We're going to do a couple of them to show you how we would actually find the solution to the system of inequalities by graphing the two lines and shading and seeing where the shading overlaps. So I'm going to start with number 1, and I'm going to choose to use 2 different colors of marker. You can use 2 different colors, or you could use I'll tell you how to use cross-hatching when we shade so that you can see where the overlap is. So first of all, we're going to graph the line y is greater than negative 1. You'll remember that y is greater than a negative 1 is a horizontal line, and so I'm going to go and I'm going to graph the line y is greater than negative 1. It's going to be a dashed line on the negative 1. I put my arrows, and it says greater than, so I'm going to test a point, 0, 0. Is 0 greater than negative 1? Yes. So I'm going to use what I call cross-hatching, and this works if you have 2 colored markers, or if it works if you only have 1. So I'm going to do this diagonal line to tell that that's the parts that's supposed to be shaded in blue. Now I'm going to use orange to shade the other one, and actually I'm going to change this equation, and I'm going to change this equation to, instead of x is less than 0, I'm going to change that to x is less than 2. And the reason is the 0 is the y-axis, and that's just kind of hard to see. So we're going to do x is less than 2. So I'm going to, you'll remember that's a vertical line on positive 2, and it is still dashed because it's less than. So I'm going to draw my dashed line on 2, put my arrows, and it says x is less than 2. Well, let's make sure with 0, 0. Is 0 less than 2? Yes, so that's where I need to shade everything to the left. And then I'm going to do what's called cross-hatching, and I'm going to draw diagonals that are the other way. And now you can see everywhere where it's blue and orange are the solutions to this system of inequalities. Y is greater than negative 1 and x is less than 2. So now let's move over to number 2, and I'm going to start with blue again, and we need to graph y is greater than negative 2x plus 2. So to graph that, I'm going to start with my y-intercept, which is positive 2, and my slope is negative 2 over 1, so I'm going to go down 2 and to the right 1, down 2 and to the right 1. I've got my 3 points, and I'm going to graph my, draw my line, and it is a dashed line because it's just less than, there's no, greater than, there's no equal sign. And so it's greater than, so let me test 0, 0. Is 0 greater than 0 plus 2? No, it's not, so I'm going to be shading on this side of the line. And now let's use orange to graph the line y is less than or equal to x plus 1. So I'm first of all going to graph my y-intercept, which is 1. My slope is 1 over 1. So I'm going to go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. There's my 3 points on the line. This one is going to be solid because it says less than or equal to. So I'm going to draw my solid line. And it's less than or equal to, so let's just plug in 0, 0. Is 0 less than 1, which is 0 plus 1? Absolutely. So I'm going to shade on this side. So once again, my solution is all of those points that are within the area where it's both blue and orange. The last problem that I want to look at for this part is number 5. Okay, so I'm going to start with blue, and I'm going to graph y is less than or equal to 2x plus 3. So I'm going to go up to my y-intercept of 3, and I'm going to use my slope of 2, which is 2 over 1. So go up 2 over 1, and I can't go up 2 over 1 anymore, so I'm going to go down 2 into the left 1, down 2 into the left 1. There's my line. It's going to be solid because it's less than or equal to . There's my line, and I plug in 0, 0. Is 0 less than 0 plus 3? Well, yes, it is. So I'm going to shade the part where 0, 0 is, because it was a true statement. And there's my shading for the blue line. Now we need to rewrite the next equation so it's in slope-intercept form. So that would be y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 1. So you are seeing that the slopes are the same. That means the lines are parallel. Well, we're going to graph it starting at -1, and we're going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Again, it's going to be a solid line. And it's greater than, so let's plug in 0, 0. Is 0 greater than -1 plus 0, which is -1? Yes, it is. So we're graphing everything on this side of the orange line. So now we see that the solution is everything between those two lines that were graphed. The last sample problem that we're going to do is on the back, and it's number 1, and it's titled Health. Mr. Flowers is on a restricted diet that allows him to have between 1,600 and 2,000 calories per day. His fat intake is restricted to between 45 and 55 grams. What daily caloric and fat intakes are acceptable? So we need to look at our x values as the calories and our y values are the grams. So with calories, with our x value, it says they're between 1,600 and 2,000. So the statements that I'm going to write is, I'm going to use C for calories. You could use x if you wanted to. C is going to be greater than or equal to 1,600, and C is also going to be less than or equal to 2,000. Because it says between 1,600 and 2,000. Now I'm going to look at my fat grams, and the fat grams have to be between 45 and 55. So I'm going to use F, but you could use Y if you want to. So we know F is going to be greater than or equal to 45, and F is also going to be less than or equal to 55. So we've actually got 4 lines to graph. And since I have blue in my hand, I'm going to start with blue. And F being Y, you know those are horizontal lines. So we need 1 on 45, which is about right here, and 1 on 55, which is about right here. It's a little off. And then I'm going to switch back to orange, and I'm going to graph my C is greater than or equal to 1600. And since it's early X, you know it's a vertical line. So I'm going to find there's 1500. So 1600 is going to be really close to that. And 2000 has a line marker already. And so the area that I'm going to need to graph is going to be right here for orange, because it's between those two, and right here for blue, because it's between those two. And then this question says, what daily calorie and fat intakes are acceptable? Well, you have to choose any point that is in that blue and orange shaded area. So I could choose maybe 1700, 50 as one possible point. I could also choose 2000, 55 because they're solid lines, so that means that they are acceptable and they are a part of the solution. And I could also choose maybe 1800, 52. Either of those work, and there's hundreds, thousands of more of them that are possible, but those are just 3 samples that I could use as possible solutions to how many calories and fat can I intake to keep in the acceptable range that Mr. Flowers wants to keep into. So for your practice problems tonight, I want you to choose one of the ones that we didn't do on the front side, and then do the one that we didn't do on the back side. So pick either 3, 4, or 5 from the front, and do number 2 from the back. Take a picture. I know it's probably going to end up taking 2 pictures, but submit them through Edmodo before class starts so that I can see how well you've done.